It is an honor to be here with you this morning. We've been hearing a lot throughout this conference about the work that needs to be done to advance a just economy. But I want to talk for a moment about some of the work that has already been done just in the past few days with our Advocacy Week for our members. We want to celebrate all of our members who engaged in Advocacy Week, and thank you for taking part in this event. Advocacy Week is a crucial opportunity for our coalition. It's an opportunity for Congress to hear directly from our members about the issues that you are facing in your communities. This year, we addressed 3 issues within Advocacy Week for Congress. Given the pending CRA rulemaking, we focused on the need for Congress to support a strong, robust CRA rule. We also focused on the need for Section 1071, which reformed the Dodd-Frank Act passed 10 years ago, and the need for the most robust possible rule under 1071 to be issued. In addition, given the pending talks around the federal budget, we of course focused on a number of areas that are in need of federal funding for our communities, including affordable housing, rental housing, home ownership, and counseling resources, additional community investments, and workforce supports for CDFIs and other entities. So thank you so much for our members who took part in Advocacy Week. It is staff-supported but member-led, and it was really a great privilege to witness Advocacy Week in action. So now to report out on how some of those meetings went are 3 of our star board members, Kevin Stein, Will Gonzalez, and Andronika Morris.
Good morning. I'm Andronika Morris, Executive Director of Housing NOLA and NCRC board member and chair of the Membership and Policy Committee. So we're so happy to be with you this morning to talk about Advocacy Week. How many of you are familiar with Advocacy Week? All right. So those are the folks who participated last week. So we're here today to talk about, we're as NCRC board members and as state leads, about the experience that we had last week during Advocacy Week and how important we feel it is to participate as members of NCRC as well as advocates in our community. I had the privilege of doing 3 of those meetings last week with some of our resident organizers in Louisiana, where we met with our 2 state senators' offices and one of our congressional offices. And to have the conversation with them about Louisiana priorities as they align with NCRC is an amazing opportunity, but it also reminds us how we have to hold folks accountable, particularly the folks that we send here to Washington to make critical decisions. Sometimes the conversations are pleasant, sometimes the conversations are frustrating, but the conversations always need to be had. And so I want to thank the NCRC team for organizing this opportunity for those of us in Louisiana and commit to following up with our congressional delegation and to expand ththose meetings. Louisiana is not the biggest state in the union by any stretch of the imagination. Our delegation is 8 people, 7 people. And hopefully next year we will have in the next few years we'll have the privilege of meeting with someone who represents the 2nd majority minority congressional district in Louisiana as a result of lawsuits championed by Louisiana advocates like the Power Coalition, the NAACP, and the Housing Louisiana delegations. So representation matters, and making sure that you connect with your leaders matters. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am not Matthew Lee. I'm filling in for Matt. I'm Kevin Stein. I work at the California Reinvestment Coalition, and I'm an NCRC board member. Really glad to talk with you about Advocacy Week. I've been coming to the conference for about 25 years, and there's so many great things about it, and hopefully you all feel that. But for me, one of the best is the opportunity for us to advance our advocacy. This is the one time a year, so for every year, this is the one time that we come to DC, the last few years being a bit of a wrinkle, and have an opportunity to bring our members, so CRC members and NCRC members, it's this kind of the same. Community groups working every day in their communities, And we think it's so important for the policymakers to hear. They spend most of their days meeting with lobbyists. We try and meet with regulators. They spend a lot of time, I'm sure, talking to financial institutions. So it's a rare opportunity for them to hear from you all about what's really happening on the ground. And so we try and take advantage of that. First of all, I do want to thank my colleague, Doni Tedeschi, who helped us organize the meetings for California. So I secured some meetings, and Doni helped organize. We had a great participation from CRC and NCRC members, I would say 10 to 25 groups. We took Advocacy Week seriously. We had about 9 or 10 meetings. We met with representatives from our senator's office, from the House Financial Service Committee, and we like to also meet with the regulators. So we were fortunate to have meetings with Acting Comptroller Sue, who visited us by video yesterday, Martin Grunberg, chair of the FDIC, who spoke before us yesterday, Director Chopra from the CFPB, and we also were really glad to meet with our old friend Janice Baldler, who's now at the Treasury Department and who I think is coming to speak later today. We focused on the NCRC agenda. We also, as I say, like to have our folks talk about what they're seeing in the community. And people were raising issues that, I've heard raised at the conference. For us, a big issue and a tough one, what is the solution? But the investors that are buying up all the properties, really consolidating ownership in a way that prevents home ownership from working families, makes life difficult for tenants living in buildings owned by people who don't really care about them and don't live in the community. Similar things happening with the investors buying mortgages, and as we understand from one of our members, in the reverse mortgage context too, concerns about affordable housing, a critical need in California and throughout the country. Small businesses, special purpose credit programs needed. We talked about broadband access as a way to help communities connect to all the benefits that CRA is meant to provide. And we talked about the needs in rural communities and Native American communities. We, of course, focused on CRA, in particular with the regulators, who weren't really in a position to say anything because of the open rulemaking. And there are just so many issues with the proposal that, as you've been hearing about, and Josh and NCRC have been doing a fantastic job of kind of walking us all through that and helping us develop positions. What we tried to emphasize, and I think what we feel very strongly about, and I sense there's, amongst us all, there might be sympathy for this position, that though the regulators came yesterday and may have said otherwise or suggested otherwise, we really feel that the regulators let us down when it comes to incorporating considerations of race in the CRA. And we're also concerned, so we're hoping that is something that we all can kind of build some consensus around and make some really strong recommendations around, and maybe hopefully change the proposal. Because I think for a lot of our members, as we've been talking to them, they're wondering, why is this better? How is this better? Is this really what we want CRA to be? And the other thing that's maybe related, and again, tons of issues, but in acknowledging our friends at ANHD and Jamie Weisberg for the thinking around this, around displacement. So they think they're dealing with displacement of households. Not really. And we need to have not just giving credit for banks for doing things that are good, but penalizing and downgrading banks for doing harm, like discrimination, displacement, overdraft fees. So I'll stop. But this is, for us, it's always a big thing. We have all these meetings, but the follow-up is key. And this is the time. I mean, of all the times, this is the time while they're working on CRA. If you're wondering how best to do that, or you want a little extra help, contact NCRC. We really need to fight in these last few weeks, these last few months before CRA, and of course continuing, because there's a lot to do. It's great to see you all. Thanks for your advocacy, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Buenos días. My name is Will Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of SEVA in Philadelphia. It's great and quite an honor to be here and quite an honor to be on the NCRC board. Advocacy Week was a special week, but as you know, it's a year-round endeavor. And we have a great team at NCRC. I want to give special thanks to Joseph Reed, who prepared us very well, a series of meetings to be able to advocate on this particular week. As you know, like I said, it's a year-long thing, many topics, but for this week we focused on three. Obviously, informing our elected officials about the notice of proposed rulemaking of the CRA, the strengthening and defending Section 1071 of ECOA, and the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and last but not least, increased support for community investments, including affordable housing. And so focused on that, we went to the meetings, prepared. The policy agenda is on NCRC's website. And wanted to reinforce, I think, what Ms. Andronika said yesterday about membership. Remember that you have a lot of brains at NCRC, and that whenever you want information about an issue or background, even if it's at the micro level of your community, NCRC is there to help. And it's one of the benefits of membership. And I heard some complaints that we weren't using them enough, so let's keep them busy because there's a lot of work to be done. And Advocacy Week is a collective thing. The Pennsylvania delegation was blessed to count with Donna Henry from Southwest CDC and her crew, Ken Bigos from Affordable Housing Centers of Pennsylvania. And so we prepared for the meetings and started off with meeting with our, the staff of our senators, Senator Bob Casey, Senator Pat Toomey, Casey Democrat, Toomey Republican. The meeting with Casey was pretty good because we heard from his office that he wants to make it, quote unquote, a signature issue, the enhancement of LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits for affordable housing, and that he's going to be working on that on the Hill. And so obviously that set off alarm bells because we want that to happen. And so NCRC is going to follow up. We in Pennsylvania are going to follow up. And it's an opportunity, right? Because again, right now there's a bottleneck in terms of affordable housing development because we need more capital, we need more resources. We have the muscle, at least in Philadelphia we do, with some amazing strong CDCs, but what we need is more capital and access. Low-cost capital, too. With Pat Toomey, it wasn't as friendly a meeting. As you know, he's a powerful senator. It's his last few months in office, where we got stuck somewhat, and again, he's on many of the committees relating to banking, was on issues of data for small business loans, et cetera. And, you know, we basically simplified it. They're concerned that if you ask for all this data, you're going to put an onerous charge on the small financial institutions. We said, look, we're in the 21st century. You want this data whether the feds ask you to get it or not. It's about business nowadays. So, you know, there's no one more blind than he who does not want to see, right? So if you cover your eyes, so it's not, you know, so I don't know if it resonated with him or not, but obviously we said the importance of data in the 21st century. Last but not least, not related to finances, we thank the senator for standing up in the winter, November, December of 2020 and January in 21, when he was one of the few Republican senators who didn't agree with the big lie. And although that was a 30-second comment, but it's an acknowledgement of that leadership and that issue. We had meetings with two of our congressmen in person via Zoom. One was Congressman Dwight Evans, and the other one was Mary Gay Scanlon. And again, we were blessed that on our team we had constituents who lived in his district. And obviously with Congressman Dwight Evans, my colleague Marcos Lomelli, and Ken Bigos from Affordable Housing Centers of Pennsylvania, were able to talk with the congressman about these issues that we outline in Advocacy Week and bring it home, and a commitment from the congressman to follow up. With Mary Gay Scanlon, it was great to see a great conversation between Donna Henry from Southwest CDC and Mary Gay Scanlon, because they were talking about all things going on in the neighborhood and brought home the issue of small businesses and the support that small businesses need. Last but not least, we met with a staffer from Madeline Dean's office, and it was interesting to see. We weren't as engaged, but it was interesting to make her aware that NCRC is there for information for them too. And obviously, we'll follow up and keep working. But again, thank you for being part of this great NCRC family. And as Mr. Taylor said yesterday, we got to speak out, because otherwise we're not going to improve our communities. So muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Andronika, Kevin, and Will, and everyone who participated in our Advocacy Week. I'd now like to introduce Joseph Reed, our senior policy advocate, who is sort of our in-house maestro who orchestrated all of those Advocacy Week meetings, 121 virtual meetings in all. So I'll turn it over to Joe to talk a bit about where we take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Megan. So, good morning, everyone. After 2 long years of looking at you, many of you, through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Google Meet, sometimes even Skype, which has surprised me. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to be here in person with all of you today. This is a great feeling. So again, thank you for coming. And for those of you in this room who participated in Advocacy Week, yes, I am the one who sent you all those emails over the past few weeks with talking points, documents, the policy agenda, webinars, to prep you for all of your meetings. And thankfully, it seems like it was a success. Advocacy Week went off better than expected. NCRC had 121 meetings scheduled this year. Yes, great accomplishment. Which is an increase from last year where we had 108. So that kind of scares me away, because now we have to try and top this next year, but we're going to try. And we met with members of Congress from both political parties from across the country, which included the Speaker of the House, the Minority Leader, the Majority Leader, members of the House Financial Services Committee, Senate banking staff, and other power players on Capitol Hill. And thanks to the leadership of Kevin Stein, NCRC board member who we just heard from, we met with regulatory agencies, 2 out of the 3 regulators of the CRA, including the CFPB as well, and Department of Treasury. And one of the key takeaways from Advocacy Week this year, just from the reports that I've seen, and by the way, state leads I'll be contacting later on for some of those reports, were that, well, of course, some offices were non-committal on some of our issues, of course, but most desire to see to learn more about the CRA and our issues, but there was also a desire to help low and moderate income communities. But of course, the sticking point was how to actually do that, which of course sets the stage for future conversations down the line. And now, in fact, I know many of you who went to Advocacy Week have meetings already in the works, which is great. And Advocacy Week are for some long-term attendees or members of NCRC Hill Day, as you might know. This is my favorite event of our conference. Advocacy Week is our membership's opportunity to interact with the congressional members, not via email, not sign-on letter, but face-to-face, or in this case, screen-to-screen, but you get what I'm saying, with a member. And one of the joys I get from this job in the policy and government affairs department is seeing just the excitement of our members' faces, like on their faces, after they come back from meeting with the members. Everyone's just super excited, and I live for that. But the work to create a just economy does not stop at Advocacy Week. In fact, it does not stop after this conference. And in fact, don't think I'm providing any spoilers here. It's not going to stop anytime soon. But that's why we're all here today, and why so many of you actually joined NCRC. You want to help guide our nation onto the path to create a just economy, on the path to creating equality for all, for equity for all, to put us on the path that so many civil rights leaders and groups in the past have attempted to put us on in the past. But one of the most pressing policy issues as of today, as Megan stated earlier, and you've heard a few of our other board members mention, is of course the notice of proposed rulemaking for the Community Reinvestment Act from the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, that's the OCC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, and the Federal Reserve. And by the way, yes, I am saying the entire name of the organization because I'm about 105% certain, with a plus a 5% margin of error, some of you do that math in the car, that there are many in this room that don't know some of those acronyms, but we speak them all the time. So we'll make sure that everyone's on the same page. But this proposed rulemaking presents the most significant change to the CRA regulation in 2 decades, over 2 decades actually. And we could use the help of every single person in this room. That's why I would be remiss if I did not plug our CRA comment table that's right outside, where you could use some of our sample comment letters, which could be found on our CRA, our Treasure CRA landing page, which can be found on NCRC's website. And I will also be remiss if I didn't, I think there might be a slide for this, I'm not sure, but membership for NCRC. If you are interested in participating in this event next year, which again, the people who actually come to Advocacy Week must be members of NCRC, or if you're just interested in some of the work that we do in the policy and advocacy space, feel free to join. I encourage you to become members. And please contact our membership department if you would like to do so. And again, I'd just like to thank everyone who participated in Advocacy Week this year. Again, just a huge success. I hope that I could see all of you here again next year. Hopefully it's a Hill day, not a week. That's easier to plan, but I really hope to see all of you, and of course new faces as well, in 2023. And thank you all for coming. I want you to enjoy the rest of the conference and have a good day. Thank you.